Finally. Hello YouTubers, this is a noobifier. I've been waiting a long time to test this one because like anything in life, there is a backstory. If you're new to the channel, hello, I'm Brian. I'm a gamer, I'm an engineer, I fabricate, I tinker. I love to understand how things work. I love photography, cinema photography. I love to take things apart. I hate being lied to by companies. I value brevity, and I love to explain what I found out to others. If that sounds good to you, please subscribe so that I can help keep you up to date. Let's begin. I've worked almost exclusively on this review since receiving the product over 10 days ago. I know that many of you will choose to buy this product or not based on what I said, so it's critical for me to become intimately familiar with it from as many angles as possible. I've tested this on both mounting solutions, and I'm going to be doing a future video on that alone, so I can quickly get you up to speed with a teaser. The Virpil mounting solution works very well. It's strong, and because it's fairly universal, it'll work well with many chairs. The MonsterTech solution has superior refinement, and it's clear that perhaps more R&D effort went into it. Infinitely adjustable and modular with the entire MonsterTech ecosystem to include the sim pit and all the chair mounts. You know me as a StarCitizen content creator. It's obvious that this product has absolutely no place in StarCitizen. However, many of you may not know that I actually play DCS on the side. I do have some experience with Sim Helicopter as I do own a Komodo Collective, which is a Virpil direct competitor. It was previously set up bespoke on a second MTX sim base just for DCS helicopter use. I was left very disappointed with my experience using it and dealing with it on a daily basis, but more on that later. I'm no expert in flying a helicopter. I know enough to get from point A to point B, and I'm getting better. Virpil sent me this for review, but that would never change any opinion that I present. I would also like to say that products within this price bracket, from manufacturers such as VKB, Virpil, MFG, SLA, BRD Bauer, and some others, have highly refined start states based on years of product evolution and customer feedback. We should expect and demand products in this price range to be highly polished, nearly perfect, and perform without compromise. And with that, you should comment your comments in the comments with your own expertise and opinions, as that helps everyone formulate their own decision on whether or not this product is right for them or if they should pass. I went through my regular workflow of discovery over the last week to approach the product review. That's on the screen for you right now. More recently, Virpil products are double boxed, being very well protected during shipping. They include little stickers to help you mark up your bindings, and they've also given us tweezers to help with the placement of the stickers. There is a supremely long USB cable with a length over 4 meters or 14 feet. It's terminated with the usual standard connector, so you can substitute it easily if you want to do some cable management when hard mounting this to a sim rig. They've also included 2 additional cams. I'm going to start with the base, which has 2 options. There's a non-plus base, which is listed as €100 less. This one that I'm reviewing is the Plus, which includes the turbine throttle axis on a twist. The turbine throttle has a single axis. Some of you might be thinking, I wish it had 2 so that I could run double engine. Originally, I thought that I wanted this functionality when I purchased the disappointing and expensive Komodo, but in the many hours and hours of flight using that collective, I never actually wanted or needed to split this into 2 axes, so the majority of you might never miss it either. This twist grip is made out of dense impact-resistant plastic with a billet aluminum drag clutch that is both pretty and easy to adjust on the fly. Twist more to add more and more drag, or back it off for less. It turns smoothly, and the grip warms up to your hand. It's easy to grip, it never slips, and it resists fingerprints. It incorporates an idle shutdown detent. My lockdown stopped at 48% of its full range, clockwise being increasing, counterclockwise decreased by default. That aluminum button is milled, sprung, and it travels without binding, returning with positive force. There's another plastic lock switch that prevents all rotation, basically locking out the axis if not needed or for storage. To be honest, it's pretty cheap feeling, but it works fine with a positive click. It's a much better implementation than if they decided to use a set screw style lockout that is commonly used on the Z-axis of most twist-enabled grips. It's completely out of the way until you need it, and it's one of those features that you may never use. As far as the throttle itself is concerned, unless you need to simulate independent control over each turbine in a multi-engine system for custom training scenarios or situations, the single throttle provided should be fully sufficient. And if you wanted to save some money by buying the non-plus base, you could simply bind the turbine throttle elsewhere, such as a HOTAS throttle up or down or a toggle on the grip itself. I guess it's up to how immersed you need to be when you're flying. The turbine speed is pretty much a set it and forget it approach. That could work fine for you, but you may find yourself in the future wishing that you had that extra functionality as your skill improves, as mine did. I started with fly now, as many might have, but more recently I've started to go through the entire pre-flight startup, warm-up, plus shutdown after landing. So it makes sense that all of these steps would be better represented on the Plus version. The actual collective sensor mechanism is really simple but very well thought out. It relies on a contactless Hall effect sensor, meaning that it can't actually wear out like a potentiometer. The axis is supported by bearings and highly resolute. When using the Limit 50 cam, the sensor is reporting 16,348 points of data to the PC. This gives the user experience superfine granularity when in-game. Any adjustment, even the most minute, will be transmitted to game. The collective axis is limited by a range of user-changeable cams, plus there's a drag clutch system that can be adjusted quickly externally through removable rubber caps. In the near future, I will be launching how to change cams and how to set drag in a future video. Externally, this device is similar to all other gimbals from Virpil. Powder-coated aluminum in a semi-flat black, silver screws and silver accents, no sharp edges. I'm probably saying this wrong. The VPC SharKa50 grip is next, and it attaches to the base with the same wire and same threaded collar as any other Virpil grip. It's modeled to represent the Ka50 Hokum Collective, plus I think the Hind and some others. Onto this base, you can attach any plain MT50 range or a Delta or Alpha grip, and it will work. I can see no reason why you would ever want to do that, but you can. Milled aluminum shaft with a dense, grippy thick rubber coating. I found the little bumpy texture to be very comfortable. The button panel itself is secured by screws, and you knew I needed to take a look inside, right? ABS plastic is light and durable. All mounting points have threaded metal inserts, so the screws don't ever thread directly into plastic. The printed circuit boards are black this time and also held in place with screws. Buttons are terminated on quick disconnects. Everything inside looks very refined and bespoke, like I've come to expect from these boutique level companies. Now, I want to address the idea of weight as being a sign of quality. The Warthog grip is a perfect example, as anyone who holds it for the first time usually says, "Wow, that's quality." However, it's important to realize that purely from a mechanical perspective, adding a bunch of weight to the grip of any controller actually compromises its mechanical operation, and it's actually seen as a poor design choice. More mass means that the player needs to overcome it each time they want to make an adjustment. More mass means that the further from neutral the player moves, the more the spring return system needs to work to return the grip to neutral. The cam and spring need to progressively apply more and more force the further the grip is deflected. It may sound like I'm being really silly here, but it's important to highlight as it further supports my confidence in the design being done at companies like Virpil and VKB. In this category, Thrustmaster is probably the most common consumer product. They make it heavy, and if they can't make it heavy, they add a ton of weight to their product to make you feel like they're heavy and have quality. Sorry for the tangent. Yes, I actually did have a point with that. When I unboxed the grip and I felt this for the first time, I smiled because I was happy that it was so light. Light and fragile is very, very bad, but this is light and solid, which is fantastic. Weight means nothing once the grip is attached to the base. The end user loses that feeling of quality and is left with more mass to overcome, as I said before. The resistance comes from the drag clutch in the base, and because of that, the force is 100% linear and consistent throughout. Again, good engineering. I'll break down the available bindings, the configuration, calibration, my test setup, and then I'll conclude. The grip has the following bindings. The Plus base has a single momentary binding in the idle lockout. Push and hold it can be bound in software. The grip has 3 further momentary buttons, 2 4-way with a push, 1 2-way with a push, and 3 up-down momentary or deadman switches. Setup is standard and very simple using the VPC app. I have a dated video listed up for you right now, but it's still current on how to update firmware, configure, and calibrate. Next was to move over to DCS. I play in VR, so I have zoom and reset view bound. I use push to talk for Discord, and I'm going to leave the rest up to you because there are pages upon pages of options here, and that could be its own video. The turbine throttle and collective axis both needed to be inverted in DCS. As fate would have it, a fellow local content creator called TV Liquid was over, and he had never flown helicopters. He felt the need to test it out. Because this was his first time, I used the TV rather than VR, and it was a really rough couple minutes, and then it all seemed to come more naturally. Roto-wing is a real challenge that commands your constant attention. It's very nuanced in that every input that you make introduces many unwanted other vectors that you need to anticipate and counteract. For example, adding collective requires counter-pedal input. Learning to fly smoothly has been one of the most satisfying sim experiences I've ever had. I'm very far from being a good pilot, but I would say that I might be a solid 4 out of 10. I can take off from point A to point B without making anyone in the back throw up. I'm currently flying the Mi-8 HIP, which is a bit of a bus, and I'm really looking forward to getting some more birds in the future, such as the new AH-64. The remainder of my kit includes the 200mm Virpil extension attached to a Virpil CM2 gimbal and the most simple warbird grip. The extension, in my opinion, is critical to get the correct range and feeling in the cyclic. The CM2 gimbal offers more torque to offset the extension, but I will say that it is set very, very lightly. Panel 1 and Panel 2 are being reviewed for a future video. The pedals I used are the BRD Collab, and I believe that these ones are the Virpil Ace trim. Now, all of these parts do add up very quickly, so it's important for you to do your research and know exactly what you're getting. In closing out, it's pretty obvious that I'm happy with the newest offering from Virpil. The base and grip being modular allow for variation in the future, possibly an AH-64 inspired grip, who knows? So here comes a little salty bit. I feel the need to highlight my pleasure in using the Virpil against the nightmare experience that I've had from the Komodo. Virpil has actually provided me with the expected polished end-user experience that I never was able to achieve from its competitor. I cannot overstate this warning. Unless you'd like to overpay for garage quality, please avoid Komodo. So if you were in the market or now simply want to test flying helicopters in DCS, should you be interested in this product? There's nothing stopping you from flying any helicopter in DCS with something as simple as a gamepad through conventional HOTAS and pedals. If you're wanting the experience to be a better simulation, and especially if you've already bought into the Virpil ecosystem, then perhaps this product might be added to the birthday or the holiday wish list. My experience so far has been seamless, such that I'd actually forgotten at times that I was in my studio. I noticed my heart rate going up when things started to get a bit spicy, and as I will state in my future review of the MonsterTech mounting system and its flight chair, I'm sold. That chair will be configured exactly as it is, so I can quickly dust off whenever I want to. And now we come to the end with the regular ending. It's a very uniquely specific piece of simulation hardware, thoughtfully designed, carefully implemented, with superior function, and it's also quite pretty to look at. Thank you very much for spending your time with me. I love doing deep dives like this into tech, so if you got something out of the video, please share because that helps a lot. Fly safe.